Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and today I want to talk about book covers through the ages. Specifically, I want to talk about the cover design for what I commonly list as my favorite novel. Even though objectively I realize it's not that good, I don't really want to discuss the book in this video. The book being The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have done a separate video about this, which I'll link in the description box if you're interested in my thoughts on the book. Either way, it's a book that's near and dear to my heart and that I have always insisted is impossible to design a cover for, just based on the fact that pretty much all book covers for The Picture of Dorian Gray are horrendous in one way or another. So today I want to present to you some of the truly awful and some of the less awful and some of the even maybe quite pretty ways in which publishing houses have tried to sell this book. Now, in the course of this video, I fully expect to be spoiling The Picture of Dorian Gray. So if you haven't read it or if you are conscious about spoilers, then maybe you should not watch this video because we will not be holding back. Before I get into some of the editions and cover designs that I found online, let me show you the two versions of the book that I have myself. The first one I got was this one, and I think case in point, this is a truly horrifying shade of orange on the cover that I don't think either Oscar Wilde nor any of the characters in The Picture of Dorian Gray would approve of. I thought I deserved to own an actual good-looking edition of this, and I bought myself this one. This is from the Penguin cloth-bound line. These are really pretty, but also very sort of nothingy. They're just design meant to look nice, but there isn't actually a whole lot in this sort of peacock feather pattern that relates to the book itself, I would argue. So this is my pretty edition of the book. However, let's have a look at how this book has been presented, in particular in the last 5 decades. There's basically 3 approaches that book cover designers seem to like when it comes to designing The Picture of Dorian Gray. One of them is beautiful young man staring vapidly at the reader. The other one is horrendously disfigured corpse. And the third approach is trying to combine both by having the person Dorian Gray standing next to his disfigured painting. So the first cover here, which is a signet edition from the 1960s, shows the second approach, which is a horrendously disfigured corpse. If you aren't familiar with the book and you pick this up in a bookshop, for about half the book you're just going to be very confused because this doesn't look like any of the characters that you first meet in the book. Obviously, sooner or later you realize, aha, that is the Dorian in the painting and he is terrifying. Now, what I do like about that cover is that it conveys a sense of horror, because the book is at its core a sort of gothic horror novel that's supposed to delve deep into the dark sides of the human psyche. And I think we're certainly getting a sense of that with this design. Let's look at the next one. This one is also from the 1960s, from 1964, Dell edition. And we are going for a similar kind of a deal as the previous one, which is just, it's supposed to be this like horrendous painting with the traces of Dorian's sin on his face, but it just looks like a middle-aged man. Doesn't look particularly sinful, just looks a bit disgruntled. It looks like some guy who's like, excuse me, why am I the face of sin when I'm actually just a little bit tired, maybe had too much to drink last night. I also like the little tagline, Oscar Wilde's most famous novel, because Dorian Gray is obviously also his only novel. Moving forwards into the 1970s, this 75 Penguin Modern Classics edition has a similar kind of an approach. You know, here again we have the horror of Dorian's sin. It's almost like these editions from the 1960s and 70s didn't quite want to put a good-looking young man on the cover because that might look a bit gay. So instead they went for the corpse or the image of Dorian, which obviously in the end are the same thing. And this one's a bit more stylized, which I think is a good approach to take. So this looks like a sort of wood cutting. Let's move on to the next one. And here we have a 1981 Dell edition. Dell still sticking with the tagline, Oscar Wilde's most famous novel. Presumably they do the same thing with, say, Wuthering Heights, Oscar Wilde's second most famous novel, Wuthering Heights. Anyway, so here we see the first instance of the combination method, as I'm now going to call it, which is to have both the eternally young and beautiful Dorian as well as the horrible, scary, sinful Dorian in the picture. This just looks like a badly cropped photograph. Like, this looks like the sort of picture that my stepdad might have taken. Everyone's looking in a different direction. Someone's probably blinking. It's all a bit blurry. However, props to the actual young, beautiful Dorian, because he looks very much like he's described in the book. Out of the book covers that have got this motif of the person Dorian and the picture of Dorian next to each other, I actually think this is the best one and the most effective one, with the way that their faces sort of merge together and they almost look like one face, and you can sort of see that it is two sides of one person. I think that's quite well done. This 1988 Norton edition is just lazy because this is just a picture of Oscar Wilde. Let's move on to one of my favorite editions for how truly awful it is. And of course, it's Wordsworth Classics. Wordsworth Classics, who never disappoint with just how terrible their classics covers are. I mean, it's like they have some sort of eternal competition for creating some of the most gloriously bad classics covers. And here we've got one. Why? So we see a young man in a dinner jacket on the right there, and then two women in dresses, and they appear to be at some sort of party. The reason I love to hate on this so much is because there genuinely are not two female characters in the book. So who are they? All right, we are in the 1990s now, and it's a new era, because now we are entering the phase of young man staring moodily into the camera, or in this case, slightly off to the side. So this is the 1993 Everyman edition. And I can't really fault the concept of it, because young man staring moodily off to the side is both accurate enough for the content of the book and as an aesthetic nice enough to look at. However, this looks like a 12-year-old boy who has just been disciplined by his teacher and is not happy about it. This 1998 Penguin Readers edition is very much along the same lines. This young man is looking right at me, and I have the strong suspicion that he is disappointed. So let's move on to the next one, because I don't know what I did. I really don't know what I did to him. 1999, still happily continuing in the vein of young man staring moodily at the reader. And this young man, who wears an enormous cravat and is holding a brush, is also clearly not happy with what he's seeing, presumably because he would rather be painting Dorian Gray than me right now. It's creeping me out. It really is creeping me out. Interesting haircut. Let's leave it at that. It's the new millennium. Can you tell from this cover that we are in the year 2000? This weirdly spacey edition is the Elibron Classics from the year 2000. Goodness, this reminds me so much of books that I had to read at school. For some reason, they all favored this kind of zany with the vertical text and the contrast and the slightly abstracted, like someone just had a really good time on Microsoft Paint type cover. I don't know if this is designed to appeal to 14-year-olds. Certainly wouldn't have appealed to 14-year-old me. I guess props for trying something different, because this is in fact nothing like any of the other covers that we've seen so far. This edition from the year 2000 continues by just having a boy looking a bit pissed off. Why is he unhappy? Well, I'm afraid you have to read the book to find out more. Oh yay, it's my favorite publisher, Wordsworth Classics, back with another edition from 2001. They had the ambition, they reached for the stars. Unfortunately, like all of us, they are in the gutter. Get it? Get it? Because Oscar Wilde said something like that. I'm so clever. They tried for the 2-in-1, the combination method, the beautiful young man Dorian next to his horrible painting. And you can tell it's the same person because they're wearing the same cravat. Otherwise, you'd never know. Otherwise, you'd think it's just some guy standing next to a picture of his grandfather. Dorian seems to have been recast here as a Portuguese swimwear model who isn't entirely sure why they've put him in a waistcoat. And the version of him in the picture that shows all of his sins is just bald. It's bald, and the sin seems to mostly have been forgetting to moisturize every evening. I think I might have to just start collecting Wordsworth Classics editions. I have a few on my shelves. I do like how the frame, the gilded frame of the portrait sort of sticks out at a jaunty angle. That's a nice touch. Yeah, well done, Wordsworth. We are still in the early 2000s, and Penguin Classics is sticking to their guns, which is beautiful young man, slightly sunburned, maybe a bit drunk, looking into the camera. He looks like a young conservative, and that is not a compliment. Here, this is a 2004 Random House edition. They decided that they couldn't find a picture beautiful enough to convey the truly stunning gorgeousness of Dorian Gray that they just slapped the title right on his face. This Dorian Gray from the 2007 Penguin Popular Classics edition is clearly looking at his phone. So this is like the picture of Dorian Gray I saw on Instagram. We are entering the late 2000s. This is a 2007 Signet Classics edition. What is going on there? This looks like an Eton boy who's just had a wasp fly in his eye and he's now waiting for his nanny to remove it. I don't actually hate this one. I have to admit, I don't hate this. I mean, the facial expression is hilarious, but I think stylistically this looks better than many of the others we've looked at so far. I think this has got something, you know, this has got some character, some personality. We are still in the late 2000s. This is an edition from 2008, and this is clearly the picture of Dorian Gray's grandmother. This looks like one of those caricatures that you get from street artists near the Eiffel Tower in Paris for 15 euros or whatever. We're still in 2008. The next one is the Oxford World Classics edition. And you might have noticed that this is just exactly the same picture as the earlier Oxford edition that we looked at, except cropped in to really emphasize the moody snobbiness of the man in the picture. I actually think this one's okay. I think this works with the way that the face is cropped and with the truly disdainful glare that this guy is giving me right now. This edition is from 2009 and it is lazy. I have nothing else to say about this. This is a lazy cover and whoever made this should be ashamed of themselves. I unironically love this next one, and this is a 2010 Penguin edition, and I kind of love it. I've got nothing to say about this. This guy looks creepy. The color choices are perfect, like that fuchsia in the cravat and the pocket square against that sort of muddy, horrible brown. And then the way that his shirt and his skin and hair has been left completely white. I actually kind of love this. I think if I was to choose a new edition for myself, I might just go for that one. I like it. He's got the sort of signature facial expression that all cover designers seem to give him, the "my lawyer will hear about this" kind of look, and it works. Nicely done. I have no words. I have no words for this. I'm just going to be quiet for a few seconds and invite you to bask in the glory of this image, this true masterpiece of cover design. Whew. I don't know how we can top that. I genuinely don't know what we could possibly show you next to erase that from your mind. Oh look, it's David Tennant. I do like him. So that was it from the picture of Dorian Gray through the decades. This was by no means all editions. There are so many more. And I specifically I limited myself to English language editions as well, because some of the international ones are wild. Get it? Tell me which one your favorite edition is. Tell me if you have one lying around at home that you think the world needs to see about. You can comment with the name of the edition and the year if you've got it. If you are interested in some more videos about book covers, I'm pretty sure I've done at least one before. And if I have, and this is not just my imagination talking, then I will link that in the description box as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!